The key did not fit the front door. It did not fit the back door. It did not fit the cellar. It did not fit the old cabinet in the dining room, or the locked drawer in her mother's desk, or any of the small, ordinary locks Vera Ashby tried it against that afternoon. By 4 o'clock, she had almost thrown it into the donation box with the rest of her mother's old things. Almost. But something stopped her. The key was too strange to be meaningless. It was small, old-fashioned, tarnished nearly black, and it had not been tossed loosely into a drawer. Vera had found it at the bottom of her mother's jewelry box, wrapped carefully in a scrap of faded blue felt, not hidden carelessly, protected. That was what made her keep it in her palm as she walked through the upstairs hallway of her childhood home. The house was almost empty now. Her mother had been gone for 2 months. The real estate agent was coming again next week. Boxes lined the walls. Dust showed where furniture had been removed. Every familiar room had begun to look temporary, as though the house was already trying to forget them. Then Vera stopped. At the far end of the hallway was the one door she could not remember ever seeing open. It was narrow, plain, painted white like every other door. But this one had always been different, not because anyone had said so directly. Her mother had never pointed at it and said, "Do not open that." Her father had never warned her. There had been no dramatic family rule. But Vera had grown up knowing, the way children know things adults never fully explain. That door stayed closed. She had asked about it once when she was small, maybe 6, maybe 7. She remembered standing in the hallway in socks, pointing at the door. "What's in there?" Her mother's face had changed, only for a second, but Vera had seen it, a tightening around the mouth, a flash of something like fear. Then her mother had smiled too brightly and said, "Just old things." After that, Vera never asked again. Now she stood in front of the same door at 43 years old, holding the small black key. The frame had been painted over so many times that the door looked sealed into the wall. Layers of white paint had collected around the edges, around the knob, around the lock, as if every coat had been another decision not to open it. Vera slid the key in. It fit. Her breath stopped. For a moment, she did not turn it. The hallway was silent. Then she twisted the key. The lock resisted. Something inside the door clicked. When Vera pushed, the paint cracked along the frame with a sharp, dry sound. The door gave way slowly. It opened with a low groan. The air that came out was stale and cool. A room that had not breathed in decades. Vera stood in the doorway and looked inside. At first, she did not understand what she was seeing. A small room, dim gray afternoon light, curtains faded almost colorless, dust across every surface, a rocking chair angled toward the window, a small dresser with one drawer slightly open, and against the far wall, beneath decades of dust, a crib. Vera did not move. Her eyes moved slowly from the crib to the wall above it. There, in faded stenciled letters, painted with care long ago, was a name. Jonah. Vera stared at it. Jonah. A boy's name. A name she had never heard once in her life. She stepped into the room. Dust rose around her shoes. The room was not used for storage. That was the first thing she understood. There were no boxes of Christmas decorations, no broken lamps, no old tax records. This room had not been repurposed. The crib was still made with a yellowed sheet. A small blanket lay folded at one end. On the dresser were unopened packages of baby clothes, tags still attached, tiny socks, a soft blue sweater, a white cap with a faded ribbon. Vera touched the edge of the dresser, then pulled her hand away. She felt as if she had entered someone else's grief without permission. Then she saw the photograph. It rested in a brass frame beside the crib. An infant in a hospital bed, So small he seemed almost unreal. Tubes, monitors, a thin white blanket. His eyes closed. Vera picked up the frame with both hands. On the back was her mother's handwriting. 2 dates, 11 days apart. Vera read them once, then again. She did the math before she wanted to. Jonah had been born 3 years before her, 3 years before Vera Ashby had entered the world. Her parents had had another child, a son. Her brother. He had lived 11 days, and no one had ever told her. Vera sat down in the rocking chair because her legs no longer felt steady. The chair creaked beneath her. The room moved slightly around her. For a long time, she could only stare at the name on the wall. Jonah. Her brother Jonah. A brother hidden behind a painted door for more than 40 years. And then, against her will, another memory rose. A different hospital. A different loss. 8 months earlier, Vera had miscarried at 14 weeks. She and Julian had tried for almost 2 years. They had been careful with hope. They had not bought much. They had not painted a nursery. They had not told everyone. But Vera had let herself imagine. A hand around her finger. A small crib near their bedroom. A future with a shape. Then one afternoon, in a cold examination room, the shape collapsed. Afterward, Vera returned to work in a week. She answered concerned emails. She told colleagues she was fine. She told Julian she did not know how to talk about it. And then she built a room inside herself, locked it, painted over the frame, and made sure even her husband could not get in. Now she sat in the nursery her parents had sealed for decades and understood something that frightened her. Some rooms were not built with walls. Some rooms were built inside people. Vera closed the door when she left, but she did not lock it. That felt important. She drove home in a fog. Julian was in the kitchen when she arrived, standing over the sink, rinsing 2 plates from a dinner she had forgotten they were supposed to eat together. "You're late," he said gently. "I found something." He turned. The look on her face made him put the plate down. They sat at the kitchen table. For several minutes, Vera only held the small black key in her hand. Then she told him. Not all at once. The key, the door, the crib, the name on the wall, the photograph, the dates. Julian listened without interrupting. When she finished, his face was pale. "You had a brother," he said. Vera nodded once. "For my whole life," she said, "and they never told me." Julian reached across the table, but Vera's hand stayed closed around the key. "I don't understand how they did it," she said. "How do you have a child, lose him after 11 days, and then just seal a room, never say his name again, have another child and never tell her?" Julian looked down at the table. "I don't know. It feels cruel. It might have been fear." Vera looked at him sharply. "I'm not ready to excuse it. I'm not asking you to." His voice stayed careful, but there was something underneath it. Pain, maybe, or recognition. Julian said, "I'm just saying grief can make people build strange protections." Vera looked away. He continued softer now. "Sometimes people think silence is protection." She knew what he meant. She hated that she knew. Julian's eyes stayed on her. "I lost our baby too, Vera." The sentence entered the room quietly, but it changed the air. Vera did not speak. Julian swallowed. "I know your body carried it. I know I can't understand that part the way you do, but I lost something too. And most days it feels like you locked the door from the inside and left me standing in the hallway." Vera's eyes filled instantly, but she did not let the tears fall. Not yet. "I don't know how to open it," she whispered. "I know," Julian said. "I've been waiting for you to tell me that from inside the room." Vera looked down at the key in her palm. For the first time that day, she wondered whether the key had opened the wrong door, or exactly the right one. 3 weeks passed before Vera told her father. She told herself she was waiting for the right moment. That was what people always said when they were avoiding the only moment available. Her father, Edmund, was 79. Since Eleanor's death, He had been staying with Vera and Julian while they prepared the family house for sale. He grieved like a man repairing something. Loose hinge, garage shelves, leaky faucet, a squeak in the back door. Anything that allowed his hands to move while his heart stayed still. Vera recognized this more clearly now. She had inherited it, not just from him, from both of them. A family style, a family silence. During those 3 weeks, the real estate agent called twice. The house needed to be cleaned, cleared, photographed. The room at the end of the hall became a deadline, not just a secret. Vera returned to the nursery alone. The second time, she brought a flashlight and a mask. She told Julian she was going to sort linens. He did not believe her, but he did not stop her. Inside the nursery, the dust seemed deeper than before. The crib watched from the far wall. The name watched from above it. Jonah. Vera sat in the rocking chair. This time, she looked more carefully. The dresser. The drawer slightly open. The clothes. The blanket. Behind the dresser, she found a small wooden box. It was tucked in the narrow space between the dresser and the wall. Hidden, but not lost. Inside were loose pages. Not a diary exactly. Fragments. Her mother's handwriting. Younger, less steady. More exposed than Vera had ever seen it. The first page was dated 18 days after Jonah's death. Vera read it sitting in the chair. I cannot make myself take down the mobile. Edmund asked if I wanted him to do it. I told him no. Not yet. I don't know when yet will arrive. I keep thinking that if I leave everything exactly as it is, some part of this will not be finished. I know that is not rational. I do not care. Vera lowered the page. The room was silent. She could almost see her mother there, young, standing beside the crib, too broken to touch anything. The next page was dated 6 weeks after. Edmund sealed the door last night while I was asleep. The paint was still wet when I woke. I knew immediately what he had done. I knew why. I have not decided whether I am angry with him or grateful. I think both. I think I will be both for a very long time. Vera's throat tightened. Her father had sealed the door. Not after years. Not slowly. He had done it while her mother slept. One decision. One night. A door painted shut. A grief given shape. The final page was dated almost a year later. We are going to try again. Edmund thinks it will help. I do not know if anything helps, but I understand what he means. If we have another child, we will tell them about Jonah when they are old enough. I do not know when that age is. I am afraid we will keep saying later, and then one day there will be no later left. Vera sat with the pages in her lap for a long time. Her anger did not disappear, but it changed shape. This had not been a cold secret. It had been a secret born in pain, then fed by fear, then protected by time. That frightened Vera more than cruelty would have. Cruelty was simple. Fear was familiar. That evening, Julian found Vera in their bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed with the pages beside her. You found something else? He said. She nodded. Mom knew they might never tell me. Julian sat beside her. She wrote that? Yes. Vera stared at the floor. She saw the future clearly, and then she still lived it. Julian was quiet. Vera whispered, "What if I'm doing the same thing?" With us? With everything? Julian did not answer too quickly. That was one of the reasons she loved him. Finally he said, "Then maybe this is where you stop." Vera wanted to believe it could be that simple. It was not simple, but maybe it could still be true. The following Sunday evening, Vera told her father. Julian made tea, then quietly left the kitchen. Edmund sat across from Vera at the table, both hands around a cup he had not touched. Vera placed the small black key between them. Her father looked at it. The color left his face. Vera did not wait for him to speak. "I found the room, Dad. Edmund went very still. The one at the end of the hall. I found the key in Mom's jewelry box. I opened it. His hands tightened around the cup. I found the crib, Vera said. The photograph, the name on the wall. Edmund closed his eyes. For a second, Vera saw him not as her father, but as an old man with a wound he had spent 40 years pretending was scar tissue. I also found Mom's notes. That made him open his eyes. She kept notes? In the room. He looked toward the dark window. I didn't know that. I need you to tell me the rest. Edmund's mouth moved once before any sound came. His name was Jonah. Vera's eyes filled. Was he my brother? Yes. The word was almost too small for what it did. Vera looked down at the key. My older brother. Edmund nodded. Your older brother. How long did he live? Edmund stared at the table. 11 days. I saw the dates. He was born with a severe heart defect. They did not know before he was born. Not then. Not with the tests they had. His voice shook. They tried what they could. But the surgery they might do now, it did not exist for him then. Not in the way he needed it. Vera said nothing. Edmund rubbed both hands over his face. Your mother had painted his name above the crib 3 weeks before he was born. Blue letters first, then white over the edges. She spent a whole afternoon on it. He smiled once. It broke almost immediately. I stood in the doorway watching her. She was so happy. I remember thinking I had never loved her more. Vera looked toward the hallway, as if she could see the room from here. Then he was born, and everything became hospital light. Edmund's voice grew quieter. Machines, tubes, doctors speaking softly, your mother sitting beside the incubator with one hand inside, touching his foot because that was the only part of him she could reach. Vera covered her mouth. I was afraid to touch him at first, Edmund said. He looked too small for the world. Your mother told me I did not get to be afraid of my own son. So I touched his hand. He looked at Vera. He wrapped his fingers around mine. Weakly, but he did. For the first time in Vera's life, she watched her father cry without trying to hide it. When he died, Edmund said, we came home to that room. The crib, the clothes, the name on the wall, everything waiting for a baby who was not coming. He swallowed. Your mother could not take anything down. I could not look at it. We lived with the door open for weeks. Every time I passed, it destroyed me. Every time she passed, it destroyed her, but in different ways. So you sealed it. He looked at her. Yes, while she was asleep. He flinched. You read that? Yes. Edmund nodded slowly. I told myself I was protecting her. I told myself she could not heal with that room open. Were you protecting her? He was quiet. Then he said, partly. The honesty cost him. I was protecting myself too, maybe more. I could not keep walking past his name and survive it, so I painted the door shut and called it mercy. Vera's anger returned, not hot, not explosive, but sharp. And then you never told me. Edmund looked at her fully. No. Why? He breathed out slowly. At first, because you were not born yet. Then because you were a baby. Then because you were 3. Then 6. Then 10. Then 16. Every year had a reason. Every year we said not yet. Vera remembered the hallway. Her small voice. What's in there? I asked once. I remember. What happened? Your mother's face closed. I saw it. You saw it too, I think. I did. And I understood that we had made a rule without saying it aloud. We did not speak of Jonah. Not to you. Not really to each other. Only on his birthday. And even then, barely. Vera frowned. His birthday. A memory rose. Her mother in spring. Quiet all morning. Disappearing after lunch. Coming home with red eyes and a bright, forced smile. Vera had noticed. Children notice everything. They just explain it wrong. That day every year, Vera whispered. Mom would leave for an hour. Edmund nodded. The cemetery. You went with her? Some years. And then you came home and pretended nothing happened. Yes. Why? because we thought surviving the day was the same as healing. Edmund's voice broke. It was not. The kitchen was silent. Vera could hear Julian moving softly in another room. She looked at her father. For 43 years he had been solid, useful, steady. Now he looked almost transparent. Vera said, "I am angry. I know. I am grieving someone I never knew I had. I know. You and Mom made that choice for me." Edmund lowered his head. "Yes. I don't know how to forgive that yet. I am not asking you to do it tonight." That answer helped more than an apology would have. After a long time, Vera asked, "Did you love him?" Edmund looked stunned, as if the question hurt because the answer was so obvious. "With everything I had," he said. And then I had nowhere to put it." That night, Vera did not sleep. Near midnight, Julian found her in the kitchen. The room was dark except for one light over the stove. A cup of tea sat cold in front of her. He sat down across from her. "How are you doing?" Vera almost said. "I don't know." She almost said, "I'm tired." She almost said the small things that were true enough to avoid the larger truth. Instead, she looked at him and said, "I have been angry at them all night." Julian waited, for sealing a room, for hiding Jonah, for pretending silence was love. Her voice shook. "And then I keep thinking about us." Julian's expression changed. Vera's eyes filled. "I think about the baby every day." His face softened. "She was a girl," Vera said. Julian did not move. "I know we didn't know. I know it was too early. But in my mind, she became a girl. I never told you that." Julian's eyes filled now too. "What did you call her?" Vera covered her mouth. For 8 months, she had never said it. Not once. "May," she whispered. Julian closed his eyes. Vera began to cry. I don't know why. It just came to me one night. May. I would lie awake and think about her. And then in the morning I would get up and go to work and act like I had not spent the night speaking to someone who was not there. Julian moved around the table and sat beside her. Not across. Beside. Vera kept talking. She told him about the guilt, the fear, the hospital room, the silence after the doctor spoke, the way she had hated her own body and then hated herself for hating it, the way she had been afraid that if she let Julian see the full grief, it would become real in a way she could not survive. "I thought I was protecting you," she said. Julian's hand covered hers. "From what?" "From me. From how broken I felt." "I was already grieving," he said. "I just had to do it without you." That sentence broke something open. Vera leaned into him and cried in a way she had not allowed herself to cry in 8 months. Not controlled, not quiet, not useful. When she finally had no words left, Julian held her and whispered, "Thank you for opening the door." The following weekend, Vera and Edmund returned to the nursery together. They stood in the doorway for a long time before either stepped inside. The room looked smaller now, not less painful, just less impossible. Edmund carried 2 empty boxes. Vera carried her mother's pages. "We do not have to do this today," he said. "Yes," Vera said. "We do." They worked slowly, not like clearing a room, like handling remains. The unopened clothes went into one box, a few to keep, the rest to donate. The small blanket was shaken gently outside, then folded. The brass-frame photograph went into tissue paper. The crib took the longest. Edmund stood beside it with one hand on the rail. "I used to imagine him standing in this," he said. Vera looked at him. "After he died?" "For years." He laughed once, bitterly. "Isn't that strange?" "No. I would pass the door and imagine the sound he might have made if he had lived. Feet against the mattress, calling for us." Vera's throat tightened. "What do you want to do with it?" Edmund looked at the crib. "Not keep it here." "Are you sure?" "Yes." Keeping it trapped did not keep him with us. He looked at the faded name on the wall. "I think I confused preserving with remembering." Vera stepped beside him. The letters were faded but still visible. "Jonah." Edmund touched the wall below the name. "I do not want to erase him." "Then don't. They're going to repaint the room." "I know. How do we keep him without keeping this?" Vera thought of her own small name, May, a name that had lived only inside her until a few nights ago. By saying his name, she said. Edmund looked at her. Vera faced the wall. Jonah, she said softly. Her voice trembled. My brother, Jonah. Edmund's composure broke. Fully. No careful silence. No turned-away face. No pretending. He folded forward as if 40 years had finally reached him all at once. Vera crossed the room and held her father. For the first time in her life, she felt him cry like someone who had been waiting decades for permission. The house sold 2 months later. A young family bought it. They were expecting their first child. The real estate agent told Vera this with a cheerful smile, not knowing what the information would do. Vera went quiet when she heard, not because it was wrong, because it was right, in a way that hurt. Before the final walkthrough, Vera and Edmund returned one last time. The nursery was empty now. The walls had been repainted a soft cream. The crib was gone. The dresser gone. The rocking chair gone. No faded blue curtains. No dust. No visible name. But before the final coat of paint, Vera had traced the outline of Jonah's letters with her fingertips. She had memorized their shape, not to trap them, to carry them. Edmund led her to the backyard. Near the fence line, a small dogwood tree had been planted. Its leaves were new and bright. I planted it last week, he said. Vera looked at him. I should have asked. No, Vera said. You didn't need permission for that. Edmund nodded. I think I am still learning the difference between doing something alone and doing something secretly. They stood beside the small tree. The house behind them no longer belonged to them. The room no longer held Jonah's things. But Jonah was not gone from the family anymore. That was the difference. That autumn, Vera learned she was pregnant again. Hope came carefully, not like light bursting through a window, more like a match cut between 2 hands. She and Julian told almost no one at first. Then they told Edmund. He cried. This time, he did not apologize for it. All through the pregnancy, Vera was afraid. She did not try to pretend otherwise. When she woke in the night, terrified, she told Julian. When she thought about May, she said her name. When she thought about Jonah, she said his too. Not every day, not as ceremony, just enough that silence did not have time to grow walls. The following spring, Vera gave birth to a daughter, healthy, loud, furious at the world in the ordinary way newborns are. Julian cried before the doctor even finished speaking. Vera laughed and sobbed at the same time. They named her Eleanor, after Vera's mother. Her middle name was Jo, only 3 letters, small enough to fit gently, large enough to mean everything. Eleanor Jo Ashby, a name that held a grandmother, a lost uncle, a baby named May who had never arrived, and a promise Vera had made to herself. No more sealed rooms, not in houses, not in bodies, not in families. One warm afternoon in early summer, Edmund sat in Vera's backyard, holding his granddaughter. Baby Eleanor slept against his chest. The dogwood in Vera's own yard moved softly in the breeze. A second dogwood. Julian had planted it after Eleanor was born, not as a replacement, as a witness. Edmund looked down at the baby for a long time. Then he said, I think grief that doesn't get spoken starts speaking anyway. Vera sat beside him. In locked doors, he said. In birthdays, no one explains. In rooms that stay closed so long, nobody remembers who first turned the key. Vera looked at her daughter. Edmund continued, Your mother and I did not mean to give you silence as an inheritance. I know, but we did. Vera nodded. Yes, I am sorry. I know that too. He looked at her, his eyes wet but steady. Will you tell her? Vera knew who he meant. Eleanor? The baby? Her daughter? Vera reached over and touched the small blanket around Eleanor's shoulder. Yes, she said. About Jonah? Yes. And May? Vera's eyes filled. Yes. When? When she is old enough to understand love can include people we never got to keep. Edmund nodded. For a while, neither of them spoke, but the silence felt different now. Not sealed, not dangerous, not inherited, just quiet. Then Eleanor stirred in Edmund's arms. Her eyes opened briefly. Vera leaned close. "Hi, sweetheart," she whispered. The baby blinked. Vera smiled through tears. "You have a family with a lot of love in it," she said. "Some of it is here. Some of it came before you." Edmund closed his eyes. Vera looked at her daughter and said the names without fear. "Your grandmother Eleanor, your uncle Jonah, and May." The baby did not understand. Not yet. That did not matter. The names had been spoken. In daylight, in the open. No locked door. No painted frame. No room at the end of a hallway where grief had to wait 40 years to be found. This time, the name was not hidden. This time, the name was not locked behind a door. This video is a dramatized narrative inspired by real human emotions, experiences, and life-changing moments. Any resemblance to specific people or events is coincidental. Closing question for comments. Has your family ever kept a silence so long that it became its own kind of inheritance, passed down not through what was said, but through what never was?